G'day fellas. Today we're going to be looking at the Dutch Fast Fortress. So the Dutch Fast Fortress is a flexible build order. It can be done a number of different ways, but ideally we're going to be looking to age up anywhere between 8 and 9 minutes, and we're going to be aiming to do so with between 3 and 5 banks. So depends on the matchup and depends on the map as to how many banks you go and what build you go. So we're in a matchup against Spain, and so because of the early tower that Spain are going to be putting out on the map, we're going to be doing a slightly different build. We're going to be doing a more aggressive build, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So with the Dutch, in the early game, you're going to want to be looking for wood treasures. If you spot food treasures, even if they're nice looking, it's normally best to just avoid them because you want to really be hunting for wood treasures. The reason why is because as a Dutch player, you're almost always going to be aging up with 15 villages, and you're always going to be able to make your age up time because the Dutch start with so many resource crates. So here you can actually see, I'm not even mining coin. I'm not fussed at all about it because I've got all the coin that I need to make all the settlers that I need. So I just keep everybody on food. When you're playing the Dutch, it's important to have all of your buildings towards the front of your base. You're aiming to create a little nook for your skirmishers to sit in, and you're going to leverage the power of your town center. So if I'm playing against Spain and he's going to be pushing him with 2 falconets, I need to make sure I've got a wall out the front so that his lancers can't be running into my skirmishers. And then I'm going to be shooting at him with my town center. Now we're taking a look at the deck. So with the deck, we've got a lot of Age 2 play. We've got a huge amount of potential here. If someone wants to fight us in Age 2, it's not going to be a problem at all. We've also got lots of Age 3 unit shipments so that if we do go for a fast fortress, we're able to back ourselves up with both infantry and cavalry. And we've also got the 2 heavy cannons in there, which are going to enable us to hit the industrial age earlier if we want to, and then really hit that power spike. Making sure that we've also got our Bank of Amsterdam and our Bank of Rotterdam and our unique church card, so that if it does go late game, we can make sure that we've got 9 banks instead of the standard 5, which you start with. So taking a look at the opponent's deck, so immediately we can see he's lacking quite a few unit shipments in Age 3. He probably should be having a little bit more. So my suspicion is that with his fast fortress, as long as I can survive the initial push from it, I'm not going to have too much of an issue because there's not going to be those reinforcing units that keep flowing in from that outpost. There's not going to be 4 hussars, there's not going to be 4 lancers. It's going to be that one initial push, and as long as I kill that, I'm going to be absolutely fine. So as we move closer to that 800 food mark, we're preparing for transition. We're heading back to the base, we're opening up our politician selection, and we're going straight for the quartermaster. Once we've clicked up, what we're going to do is transition our villagers onto wood and a small amount onto food. We're aiming to hit 350 food and 350 wood at the exact same time. Once we do that, we're then going to build a bank with 3 settlers and move a whole heap onto coin so that we can avoid having an idle town center. If you're able to pick up a few treasures in the meantime, even a coin treasure can really help out. As the opponent gets closer to aging up, I move my explorer into position and put him onto melee mode so that he's ready to snare. Once we age up, we immediately send for 700 wood. With this wood, we're going to be building 2 further banks, but it may take a while for us to gather the food that we need to actually build it. Fortunately, on Mongolia, we have yaks, which are going to enable us to really put our build into overdrive. It's 4 minutes 30, and I'm dropping down my stable. I've decided to go for a stable here because it's likely that the enemy is going to be aging up with 4 hussars, and if I make skirmishers out of my barracks, it's just going to get very easily countered by the enemy's hussars that he ages up with. So I'm opting here instead to go hussars. That way I'm going to be putting pressure on the enemy, forcing him to garrison in his town center, and if I'm lucky, I'll be able to pick off a villager or 2. My second shipment that I'm putting is the bank wagon. So this bank wagon, when it arrives, it's going to take 10 seconds to transform into a bank. The wonderful thing about Dutch banks is that they have a huge amount of experience once they've been built, but also when they die, they've also got a large experience bounty. And what we're going to do is leverage this experience to keep our shipments coming in as quickly as possible. So you'll see once the bank that's building right now is finished, we're going to grab a huge bump in our experience, and it's going to power us up and bring us close to our second shipment, or our third shipment rather. Then, once the bank wagon arrives, that's going to take us and flip us over, and then we can send the next shipment up straight away after it's finished. Now with my explorer here, because he's Spain, I'm really careful not to give him any extra experience, because that, even though it's only 45 experience for my cavalry, for my explorer, that 45 experience makes a big difference, and it could mean the difference in 30 to 40 seconds between him receiving a shipment and not receiving a shipment. So even though, I show my cavalry here to save my explorer so that he doesn't get that experience. Now the shipment that I'm sending now, it's where the build deviates. So I've gone with 8 pikes. So normally in this position, what you'd actually go for is 600 wood. If you weren't playing against a Spain who was aggressive, you'd just go for a normal 600 wood. But because we're against Spain, we're shipping the 8 pikes, and what we're doing with those pikes is we're obtaining map control. So it's still quite late into the game. It's 6 minutes 40, but these pikes are going to be able to put pressure on this outpost. They're going to be able to take it down, hopefully, just as the Spaniard is aging. We're going to use our Mongol scout to tank the tower shots so that we don't lose any pikemen, and then we're going to pressure with our hussars at the same time. Now, keep in mind, while we're back at home, we've got 4 banks up, and we're building up our economy. We're looking to age up immediately. All we want to do is put this pressure out, or we spot 5 villages here, which is just a huge amount. I think my opponent actually gets frustrated at the pathing of them and just deletes them. He seemed to be quite temperamental, because there's no way my hussars killed those villagers that quickly. Undoubtedly, they all would have died though. So now we ship that 600 wood. So we've got the key here is with this 600 wood, you don't want to build an extra bank, because we're at the point in the game where the difference between 4 banks and 5 banks isn't really that huge. So with that extra wood, okay, so our opponent's just aged up with the pikemen, and you can see his outpost is dead. He has aged up quite late, 740 for Spain, especially because he's got yaks and he hasn't been touched. Really, he should be aging up about 730 at the latest. So now with our pikemen, we're going to continue exerting pressure onto the map. We're going to take down the trade post, and it's at this point that the opponent realizes that we have done so much to damage his game plan that he can't even compete from here. We are so far ahead when it comes to tempo. He knows that we're going to have a huge amount of banks up. He knows that our game plan has gone perfectly. And so he's obviously frustrated with the pressure that we've put on his outpost, which means that his whole timing is off. We've killed his explorer, so he's not going to be making any war dogs. And just through that, we're able to win very, very effectively. I would have loved to have shown you an extended game, but realistically, it doesn't change a lot from here. All that we're going to be building as Dutch is we're going to be, with that 600 wood when it arrives, we're going to be building a barracks, we're going to be building 3 houses, and we're going to be building a market. And with that market, we're going to be buying all the wood that we need for further houses. All of the rest of the shipments are simply going to be unit shipments. Because we started with a stable and we're building a racks in transition, we need to start adding to our skirmisher mass. So we're going to start with 8 skirmishers, then we'll ship 9 rooters, and then we'll ship 7 skirmishers, and then we'll ship 7 rooters. And we'll continue alternating like that. In the meantime, we're just building up that mass, and just a very standard goon skirm mass. But even though we didn't reach the fortress age, we would be aging up with the exiled prince in the next 5 seconds, because we've got 17 settlers on food, and we'd be aiming to age up around that 840 mark. I hope that you've been able to take something away from this video. While it wasn't as long as I would have liked it, and my opponent was obviously frustrated at the extent we went to ruin his plan, you can see the power of the Dutch fast fortress in that it's able to exert pressure upon the map and at the same time build up an economy and age up to the 3rd age very quickly. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.